A presidential visit securing the future of Selfridge Air National Guard Base. Now, a tone of criticism underneath celebration. Governor Whitmer getting flack for working with the Republican president she has been so critical of. We'll ask her about it. And Congressman John James, one of many looking to be Michigan's next governor, but where does the GOP need him? Today is Sunday, May 4th, 2025. This is Flashpoint. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nick Monticelli. Jason is off this week. Right now, there are 8 candidates hoping to be our next governor. 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 1 independent. Today, Republican Congressman John James joins us as there are questions about where he can be more effective, Lansing or staying in D.C. to work with the Trump administration. Just this week, James was applauding the president for securing a new flying mission at Selfridge. In fact, when President Trump was in Warren, marking his 100 days in office, his rally kind of took a backseat to that announcement because it solidified the base's future. Governor Gretchen Whitmer has been selling Selfridge for years. Then came that awkward Oval Office moment with the governor in the corner. Now, when President Trump was hinting at that Selfridge announcement, now she is being criticized for working with President Trump. The governor is joining us to talk about the backlash and the accomplishment. She is up first this morning on Flashpoint. We're going to begin this morning with that big news out of Macomb County, really for the entire state of Michigan, as President Trump announced 21 F-15EX Eagle II fighter jets now assigned to Selfridge. And a big part of that reason is Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The governor is joining us here on Flashpoint this morning. Governor, you must be ecstatic that all of your work finally paid off here.
I am. It was a long, windy road with lots of ups and downs, but this is a great thing for the whole state of Michigan. You know, the A-10 was going to be retired. There was not a plan to replace the fighter mission. While we got tankers under the Biden administration, the fighter mission was yet to be recapitalized. And so we've been at work at it. I've had many conversations with President Trump and the White House about this in particular, as well as a lot of other issues that I like to raise. But I'm really pleased that we were able to get this over the finish line. It's a big deal for Michigan. You know, I know you and your team had talked many selling points with the White House and the DOD between our geography, the infrastructure that we have, the men and women at Selfridge. Do you think there was one point in particular that pushed this past the finish line, or was it a culmination? I think it was a culmination, and it was just being totally relentless. You know, I went to the dinner at the White House in February. I raised this then. I've had a couple of meetings with the president and many phone calls, and each time I talk about this, and I could tell with every conversation they were getting closer to making a positive decision, but this really, it turned out to be best case scenario. This, you know, these new planes that we're going to get are state of the art. This recapitalization solidifies our leadership in not just homeland security, but in aerospace, in advanced manufacturing for decades to come. And so this is something that is about $850 million a year in economic activity for the state of Michigan. So it's really great, and it's just one more reason that we're going to be able to grow in this space. Many of the headlines have read this is the definition of bipartisanship. What has it been like for you working with the president that you have been very critical of in get something like this done? Well, my North Star is always trying to do the right thing for Michigan and Michiganders. You know, in my first term, it meant getting threats because I was trying to keep people safe during a pandemic. In my second term, it means getting criticism for showing up in the Oval Office and advocating for our state. At the end of the day, none of that matters to me. What matters to me is results, getting things done for people in Michigan, for the Michigan economy. And I think this is something that we should all be celebrating because it's important. And I think that's what public service should be, putting service above self. You are a national leader in the Democratic Party. Your name has been tossed around as a possible presidential candidate in 2028. Are you getting criticism or backlash from some of the Democratic Party for working with the president on this? I think that there are people outside of Michigan who don't really understand why this is so important to us. We get it. You know, people of Michigan have elected me twice, I think, because they know I'm going to show up and do whatever I can for our state and put my own, feelings and aspirations. That's secondary to my job. And that's really how I feel and see it. So I can take criticism. That's not going to change how I conduct myself. If I can find common ground, I'm going to. And when I can't, and it's important, I will fight like hell for the people of Michigan always.
So you have about a year and a half left in your governor's term there. What is left on your to-do list? How long is it?
It's long, and it's always growing. There's always more to do. So I'm never going to be satisfied. But ultimately, with regard to the federal government, I want to get the Asian carp, that Brandon Lock Road in Illinois has got to get built to keep Asian carp out of our Great Lakes. I want to get relief for ice storm victims. We still have, a lot of damage from the ice storm a month ago. I want to make sure that we land this great economic development opportunity, which is good paying jobs and onshoring supply chains. So there's a lot on the federal level. And then getting a real road solution and a balanced budget done are at the state level are primary concerns for me. We're coming to a cliff on the roads. We've got to have a long-term solution for all of our sakes and the benefit of our economy. So that will continue to be where I spend my energy.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the roads because when you were first campaigning, many of us at TV stations were questioning with the FCC if we could say fix the damn roads on TV. Now we know the answer, but are you happy? Are you satisfied with what you've accomplished so far? And what can we do in the next year and a half to keep some of that momentum? Because as you mentioned, there is a lot of work yet to be done.
There is, the Rebuilding Michigan plan was something that I was able to get done unilaterally, but ultimately we need a legislative long-term solution. And so I put a plan on the table. The House has passed a plan. There are some shortcomings in it from my perspective, but there are some similarities to the plan I put on the table. So I'm going to continue to work with the state Senate and the House and try to get something done that makes sense for Michigan as we negotiate the budget. We got a lot of things that we got to work on together, but this is something that's important for our safety, to help Michiganders with regard to keeping costs low and to build an economy that is sustainable and that can continue to grow.
Do you think there isn't enough political will on both sides, I guess we could say, to come together and find the right budget solution to, we probably can't say permanently fix the roads, but come up with a permanent funding solution?
I think so. As I talk to legislators, as I talk to Michiganders all across the state, we understand the importance of this. And there's a lot of anxiety and concern about a variety of decisions that are happening in Washington, D.C. And I understand that is top of mind for a lot of folks, but the roads still are foundational when it comes to everything we need to get done in Michigan. Really making sure that we are addressing this issue that we all face every single day continues to be extremely important, and that's why I'm going to stay at it until we get it done.
All right, so let's look down the road a year and a half to your successor. It has been an interesting race so far in the pool that's come up. What are your thoughts on who's entered the race for the next governor?
I think, one of the things I know is that we got a lot of great, talented people in this state. And I'm not surprised that the field is as big as it is now. And I'm sure it will continue to grow, or very likely can. And I've decided to stay neutral in the race because I don't want anything to distract from what I want to get accomplished in these next year and a half that I've got on my term. But I'm hopeful that whomever I turn hand the keys over to will continue the work that we've gotten started, because we are headed in the right direction. There are a lot of good things happening across the state. I'm proud of that. And I'll continue to watch this race play out just like you will. So
I'm assuming it's safe for me to say that you would like to see the next governor be a Democrat. What do you think your party needs to do to make that happen?
One of the things I've always done is get across the state, connect with people, ask questions, and listen. I think that is a skill that is useful in all walks of life, but especially politics. When I ran in 2018, if you'd asked me, you think you'll run on a phrase like fix the damn roads, I would have thought you were out of your mind. But it came from asking people, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, what can I do that'll make your life better? And so I think that that's always going to be important. And I know that Democrats do that well. We listen, we stay focused on the fundamentals, but that would be my advice to anyone running for any office for that matter.
I want to look at one of the challenges facing our state right now, and that's population. What can we do from your perspective to attract more people, more talent, more individuals to move to this good state?
Well, you know, we've got some wonderful things that make Michigan unique, from our 4 seasons to 20% of the world's fresh surface water, some of the finest institutions in higher education, job opportunities, great employers. Michigan's a special place, and we are seeing others looking into coming into Michigan, and in numbers that, you know, I think are headed in the right trajectory. We got to get really comfortable telling our story, working together. You know, I often cite Texans as an example of a state where, man, they got different views on lots of political things, but they are great ambassadors for their state. Michiganders are humble, and it's a wonderful trait, but I think we got a lot of swagger too. And so making sure that people know in Michigan, you're going to be protected and respected under the law. In Michigan, you've got the right to make your own decisions, and we're making it easier for you to start your small business. In Michigan, we work with employers to make sure that we've got a great business climate. All of these things are important, and I think great strengths for us. But there's always going to be more work to do on this. We've got to continue to be cutting edge, place where young people see an exciting life and a strong future for themselves.
And hopefully that new fighter mission will attract more. Governor, thank you so much for your time on this Sunday. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
When we come back, we're going to dive more into this governor's race and talk to one of the candidates that may be looking for something else, depending on which side of leadership they're listening to. Welcome back to Flashpoint, everybody. As we have been discussing, it's about 1.5 years now until the governor's seat will be vacated and a new governor will take over the reins of the state of Michigan. And as we have said many times here on Flashpoint, that candidate pool is filling up. One of those candidates, current U.S. Congressman John James, joining us now here in studio. Before we talk about what you'd like to accomplish if you are elected, I do want to spend some time talking about suffrage, because I think from your background, you understand why this is a big deal, not only to Macomb County, but national defense.
You nailed it. When you consider that within a 500-mile radius, you have 1/3 of the entire population of the U.S. and Canada. When 9/11 happened, fighters from Selfridge were actually deployed to New York. We in the state of Michigan have an outsized role in the defense of this nation, and we've seen it from World War II, when we were called up and responded with the arsenal of democracy, to COVID, when we responded repurposing our automotive industry for ventilators. We've always been called upon when our nation needed us, and now we will be in a better position to do that with our new F-15EXs that President Trump promised, in addition to our tankers. Right. This makes our base relevant, this makes our nation safer, and this makes Michigan stronger. Looking at your military background, can you kind of talk to us about what happens behind the scenes in terms of how many jobs this adds, the training that will have to happen, the infrastructure that has to change? Yes, of course. You mentioned my military background. I graduated at West Point in 2004, became a Ranger qualified Apache pilot, and flew 750 hours combat in Operation Iraqi Freedom. And I came back here because I want to serve my community similarly as I served my country. And what this means for our economy, in addition to our national security, is it boosts our economy from the military families who will be coming here, from the production that would need to be sustained for our combat readiness, and also stabilizing Selfridge Air National Guard Base. We have lost 3 flying missions in the past few decades, and losing Selfridge would decimate southeast Michigan. We are short at $8.1 billion of pro rata share of defense spending from this state, and I'm doing everything that I can to claw that back to benefit the state of Michigan. Now, there's a transition going on right now. We need to be able to fight future wars and win them. And so making sure that Selfridge stays on the map with these future fighter missions is essential. But I'm also working on things like hypersonic defense, working on AI with data centers that it's going to take to actually make those happen. Cyber, drone warfare. These are all things that I'm working on, and I'm really excited, in addition to the fighters, making sure that we have a new runway to accommodate those fighters. So I'm actually... Need some more space. That's right. We're going to need some some more space. So actually, the functional and infrastructure needs that are required to bring these fighters here are necessary, and I'm excited to do that right now.
So I want to talk about your campaign, and we'll talk about what you'd like to accomplish. But one of the things I want to start with is that there have been multiple discussions and rumors, and you can confirm nor deny that Vice President Vance has talked to you about maybe you'd be better served working with the Trump administration staying in D.C. Have those conversations happened, and where's your head at in terms of Lansing versus Washington?
My head has always been in Michigan. I'm not too good for my home, and these are things that matter at my home. In my home, we actually have a rising unemployment rate with a declining population. We have a rising number of manufacturing jobs that we're losing, and a declining performance of our education system. That is why a governor who can actually win and actually has the credibility and the skill sets to be able to focus on bringing manufacturing jobs as somebody who's worked in the automotive industry and growing hundreds of jobs here in the past 10 years. These are the types of skill sets that we're going to require in order to make life in Michigan better. Look,
so the Vice President didn't call you then?
The Vice President hasn't called me. Okay. No. That is a rumor, but I would welcome a call from the Vice President to talk about anything and everything and how we can make Michigan stronger. The Vice President does care very deeply about the Midwest, and he came here to talk about building it here. And we need to have an environment where President Trump is trying to make America great again. We need to have someone who's going to make Michigan great again. We need to focus on academic excellence, economic mobility, and public safety. You're seeing the president bringing trillions of dollars of investment back to the United States of America, but you ever notice that a lot of that's not coming here? Is going to Ohio, is going to Indiana, is going to North Carolina, Alabama, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, everywhere else but here, because it's an adversarial business environment. Right now, because of what's going on in Lansing, it's choking out the business that's already here, large and small, mom and pop to multinational corporations. They're choked out and they're actually leaving the state, where others who are looking to make investments aren't even giving Michigan a chance. We need to change the story. We need to change the narrative about Michigan, because we have the talent, we have the skill set, and we are not afraid of the future, but we demand to be a part of it. And we will not, we cannot, without the right leadership to get us right on track.
I know you talked about academic excellence, and it's no surprise that we have literacy rate issues
yes, we do.
In this area, especially in Detroit. What's your plan? How do we fix that?
Focus on literacy. See, it's not hard. It's not hard. We have to focus on literacy, and we have to drive accountability. I believe very strongly that our school boards are hurting our students, and the teachers' unions are hurting the teachers. We have God's servants, these teachers. I put teachers on the same level as I put soldiers, people who have a mission, people who love children, people who want to invest in future generations, but because of the inertia, because of the special interests who are protecting that 1% who aren't performing, it hurts everyone. I believe that paying teachers what they're worth, I don't think there's any reason in Michigan that a good teacher shouldn't make 6 figures. I don't believe that in Michigan that parents should not have a choice of where they're going to send their children. I believe that when you give parents a choice, you give children a chance, and a good quality education is a basic civil right. And focusing on literacy and making sure that parents understand this, focusing on that metric, because if you can't read, you can't do math. If you can't read, then you can't pursue excellence. Just in the city of Detroit, we're sitting right now, the literacy rate for 3rd graders is at 11%, and the adult literacy rate in the city of Detroit is in the 40s. When you look at 4th graders around the state who are reading at grade level, it's in the 40s. And you look at our educational performance across the country, we're at the bottom of the barrel. That's unacceptable. So and the thing that has to change is we have to give parents the tools that they need to make sure their children are successful.
You talked about paying teachers more.
Yes.
That becomes a budget issue. Where does the money come from?
The money comes from actually broadening our tax base rather than simply increasing our tax rate. When you do things like focus on regulatory reform, tort reform, and tax reform, then you attract more business here, and you see that people are hungry for the opportunity to invest, but we have to create an environment for them to do that. Great examples are defense companies like Anduril that are moving from California into places like Ohio, Intel, site selectors who I talk to in my role, they say they don't even put Michigan on the list. When you have people who are here and they come, we don't have to offer a pirate's ransom for them to come, because we don't have enough taxpayer dollars to pay for terrible policy coming out of Lansing. We need to make it more hospitable to bring business in, and most importantly, keep business here. When I visit farms and factories all over the state, they can't stop talking about what Eagle is doing for their ability to comply and whether they should just fold up their farm and go do something else because their children are looking at Michigan and saying, I'm going to go pursue opportunity elsewhere. That has to stop. We need to bring our population back. We need to broaden our tax base. We need to make sure that everybody can participate in the economy. And that's the economic mobility that I'm talking about, not just creating this job, but in allowing you to pursue the middle class and the upper class and creating a clear path for everyone to achieve the American dream.
We have a couple minutes left, so I'll ask you one more question here. Outgoing Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, you're looking to flip that seat to red. How do you do it?
Well, it's not just having the military background, understanding what it takes to protect American lives, Michigan lives, because I've actually led through crises before, and being the commander-in-chief of the National Guard, having a combat background is something that only I can say in this race, but I have experience with. Also having a business background, signing the front and the back of a check, being an executive in the automotive industry where manufacturing is so important. That is an experience growing hundreds of jobs that we need to be able to have. And then for a state where we get 40% of every dollar we spend at the state from the federal level, having a close relationship with the administration and also my colleagues in Congress, making sure that Michigan is first to the table for the investments in our infrastructure, our health care, our energy, and making sure that we continue to have those resources to grow and invest in our state are all very important. And I'm the only one on either side who can say that. I have the relevant experience where it matters, and Michigan needs a leader who can execute competently, bring character to the position, and you also have history on your side. This is very important. Since 1983, when Democrats have come in, Michigan has selected a Republican to fix it. Every single time a Democrat has come into office this century, we've lost population and Republicans have gained it. Since 1983, under Blanchard, when we had 12 years of Engler, then we had 8 years of Granholm, then we had 8 years of Sider, now we're going to have 8 years of Whitmer. Michigan, with Democrats in charge, which will be for a total of 8 years, Michigan is going to respond to having a leader who can deliver academic excellence, economic mobility, and public safety, because that is what people need. People want an executive in Lansing. They don't want an activist. And I have the experience necessary to lead and help the people achieve the American dream.
All right, there it is, Congressman. We appreciate you coming to Flashpoint today.
Thank you so much
for your time. When we come back, we're going to look at a couple of things that you want to look at for the week ahead. We'll be right back. A few things to look ahead as we say goodbye. Keep an eye on talks between President Trump and China. There could be some changes in tariffs, especially when it comes to how much you are paying when you're shopping online. Also, auto tariffs are ramping up. And what will happen this week as the Department of Justice is suing the state of Michigan, trying to stop AG Dana Nessel from filing lawsuits against fossil fuel companies. The complaint says Michigan plans to sue these companies for damages related to climate change, claiming that would conflict with federal authority. Michigan AG Nessel is not backing down, calling that lawsuit frivolous. Thank you so much for joining me here on Flashpoint. Meet the Press is next. Make it a great Sunday.